Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. The Roundtable's rocking today, ladies and gentlemen. This is the broadcast for December 18th in the year of our Lord 2014. It's hour 2 at 2, and our goal always to protect life, liberty, and property, and to promote God, family, and country on your radio. Yes, indeed, ladies and gentlemen, we believe in and want to utilize the supreme law of the land, the blueprint for liberty, the Supreme Constitution. The Constitution for the United States of America, ladies and gentlemen, the rule of law in America. We never want to have revolution, but always restoration of the greatest country on the face of the earth. The checks and balances put in place by our founders, absolutely inspired and brilliant, and the solution to recovery of the greatest country on the earth. Restoration, baby, that's what it's all about for us. Welcome to the broadcast. Oh, man. Before we get to our quick guests here, listener Charles was listening to us last hour, and he emailed us, and he said, hey, man. Actually, I think he texted Kurt. No, he emailed, I guess. Okay. Anyway, Charles basically, he says, hey, man, a friend of mine says U.S. foreign policy is kind of like running with scissors. I couldn't have put it better myself. What can I say? That's fantastic. The United States foreign policy is like running with scissors. Yeah, not very smart and just full of nothing but trouble. All right, Kurt Crosby's with me on your radio. Welcome, sir.
Buenos dias. Greetings and salutations. Howdy, howdy, howdy. Thank you, Sam.
You're welcome, sir. Former Sheriff Richard Mack, CSPOA.org, in the house. Welcome to the broadcast, sir.
Hey, thanks, Sam. Kurt, good morning. Good to be with you on the radio instead of Washington, D.C.
Amen to that. What do you think? U.S. foreign policy is kind of like running with scissors. It's a great way to put it.
It is. That is a good way to put it. Again, though, what is being shown here by our illustrious semi-sort of president, quote, president, is that he has absolutely no regard for law. I actually agree with normalizing relations with Cuba.
So do I. In fact, we talked about that last hour. Why on earth, or how on earth could we influence somebody to be more freedom-loving, focus more on the principles of liberty, a free market, free enterprise, all those kind of things, if we've got these iced-over relations of war with them or hostility? You got to lead by building a relationship of trust, sir.
Of course. But, however, ignoring Congress when they're the ones that have to approve embassies and ambassadors is still, again, his dictatorial philosophy that the president can do whatever he wants and doesn't have to go by any of the rules or laws or even just common decency and communication.
Good point. No doubt about it. All right, our current guest on the line. He's a sitting sheriff. It's from, how do you say it, Eddy County? Eddy County?
Yes, Eddy.
Eddy County, New Mexico. Scott London, welcome to the Liberty Roundtable, sir.
Good morning.
All right, there's a mark of a great talk show host, and I'm trying to be one of them. So here's what we do. We say to you, you know what, sir, the less I talk and the more you talk, the better. You called Richard Mack with an update on what's happening for you. Richard called me and said, man, we got an incredible stand-up sheriff going on here. We want to talk about it. We want to support him. We want to get involved. And so tell us the story, sir.
Well, and I guess the long and short of it, we had one of my residents here in Eddy County had some property that, the I.R.S. was trying to seize. There's a court case going on. I don't know all the details of the case, and quite frankly, I don't care. It's not my concern at this point. But the I.R.S. has gone after him, and they've got a federal judge from the southern half of New Mexico to go ahead and grant an order to seize and dispose of, or seize and sell his property for taxes due. Now that order was issued in September. In October, he filed an appeal. Fast forward to
which, hold on, by the law, he has every right to do, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We have a right of due process, and he was exercising that right of due process. And so he did file that appeal, and I did confirm this week with the 10th Circuit Court that he has filed an appeal. He has filed his brief.
Well, then I got a question. How do you take his property until the case is finished? I don't get it.
Well, that's how this week got interesting. the order was issued in September, and they chose to come, a week before Thanksgiving to seize this guy's property. Fortunately, we're a small enough community that somebody knew me. They sent me a message, and happened to be in a county commission meeting. I left the meeting and went to one of the rent properties because it was he has 3 properties, his personal residence and 2 rent properties. And they were evicting his tenants. And I showed up, and they acknowledged that they knew he had filed an appeal, but they had a standing order to seize the property and to sell it. And I, as politely as I could, I tried to explain to the marshals that, he has not exhausted his due process. And until he has exhausted his due process, you can't take his property, and you certainly can't dispose of it. And
and the other problem is you got an innocent group of tenants here that are being, in my opinion, wrongfully dealt with in this case as well. If they have a lease or whatever else, they're entitled to some kind of contractual benefits or stability or safety as well, are they not?
Absolutely. And so I told them that they had to stop their eviction process, and I'm sure this marshal was acting in good faith because he had done this before, and he politely told me, he says, well, I have an order here from the judge that says to arrest anybody who interferes. And I told him, I'm the one interfering, but you're not taking me to jail today. And
well, hold on a minute. When we talk about interfering, though, it's your jurisdiction, is it not?
Absolutely. And
so wait a minute. If he's in your jurisdiction without your involvement, though, he would be interfering with a citizen's due process, right?
He would. The concept I don't think he was really familiar with. This was a situation I'm certain was the first time he had encountered law enforcement standing against him executing an order. As a matter of fact,
But let me be clear. Let me be clear, Sheriff. And I want to say this, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. You can either jump on board with this, or you can say, no, Sam, you don't know what you're talking about. You're not against this person or this agent, and you're not against him doing his job. What you are for is his adherence to the law.
Correct. As a matter of fact, after a very long day, we had a conversation with the marshals, or I did, and talked about the oath. I happen to carry a pocket copy of the Declaration of Independence and U.S. Constitution. I'm sure you've seen those little.
Yeah, you and David A. Clark Jr., buddy. Good for you, sir.
Man, I love those things. I issue one out to every deputy I swear in. We all have them. And I had mine in my pocket, and I talked about my oath. And he said, I take an oath too. I said, okay. And so what does that oath tell you? He says, well, that oath tells me I have to follow orders. Now,
wait a minute. Hold on. Stop. Sheriff, hold on. Sheriff Richard Mack. I want you to quickly respond before we continue the story.
Well, I was kind of chuckling, and Sheriff London and I already had that conversation. And, even if some of the oaths, and there are a few that say and follow orders, the Constitution in the oath of office is always first. It's first and foremost. And every branch of government has to follow, adhere, and obey the United States Constitution. And you don't get to disobey it just because a judge signed a warrant or said you can. It is up to you to keep. And quite frankly, anybody that says they have to follow orders goes way back to the Nuremberg trials. And that was debunked at that time, and it's debunked now. We have to follow the rule of law. We have to follow the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights is supreme.
Well, and then you got to start to question if it's literally the judge that gave those orders, or is the I.R.S. playing games with signatures, or who or what. Then you got to start to really ask a question if you've got supreme law of the land protections, and then you've got orders that violate that. Are they unlawful orders? If we've got a judge issuing unlawful orders, or if somebody's circumventing and pretending a judge issued those orders, we've got a mess on our hands until you dig into it, don't we, Sheriff?
Well,
London?
Sam, I wanted to say one other thing.
Sure.
And I really want to hear mostly from Sheriff London. Sheriff London, I've known for quite a while. He attended the St. Charles CSPOA convention, and he was actually on a panel to discuss some current issues with a few other sheriffs. And this is my thing about what the I.R.S. is doing. The sheriffs in this country, most of them, are required to serve the writs of a civil action. For instance, Sam, if you owe me money and you're not paying me, then I sue you, and the judge will issue a writ to be served by the sheriff to go collect property from you so that I can be reimbursed for what you owe me. That is a legitimate function of the sheriff. And never at any time are we allowed to take their car. We can't take their car. If they have two cars, we can take one of them. But we can't take their home. We can't kick people out of their homes. We can't. We can go in if they have if they have two TVs. We can take one of the TVs. We can take some of the other property, and we can, you can garnish bank accounts to an extent, but you cannot kick somebody out of their home. This is something that the I.R.S. does as a matter of routine. I think it's astonishing that the I.R.S. is allowed to do this, that other people are not allowed to do, that they literally kick people out in the street, and this time, as you mentioned, even an innocent person who is just simply living in one of the apartments owned by the citizen that the I.R.S. is attacking. I think it's astonishing that this government is so ruthless and so cruel that they wait.
And hold on, and so lawless, though. Let's be clear. It's not. It's ruthless and it's cruel, but this is about the law, Sheriff London. That's kind of what I want to ask you about. When they issue orders that conflict with the supreme law, it's a renegade judge, or it's a renegade I.R.S. if they're pretending they have the judge's authority or permission when they don't. What's the real deal? Do we know yet?
Well, and like I said, I don't know all the details of the case. At the time that the judge issued the order in September, and I know there's arguments on either side of this one. He may or may not have been in the right in signing that order. I get it. But, there's a reason they wait 30 days to execute that order, because he has a right to file an appeal. So the original order is, I'm sure people would argue it, and there may be an argument for it. I don't know, because that's not my field of expertise. What I do know is at the point that he filed an appeal, that original order should have been stayed. And they contacted the judge, and the judge was aware that he had filed for an appeal, but wanted them to proceed with the order. That's where I have an issue.
Now, where does the judge get the authority to say proceed even if the appeal is going on? Is there authority for that? I don't think so.
Well, that's why I was there. That's why they called me. And I'm sure there's a ton of arguments for the legal case that is way beyond my scope of understanding. I'm not a tax guy. I'm a law enforcement officer, but I'm the elected sheriff who took an oath. And like Sheriff Mack said, the first part of my oath, and this is the conversation I had with that marshal, the first part of that oath is to support the Constitution of the United States of America. And I asked him, I said, okay, so you claim that you have an oath to follow orders, but your oath to this Constitution comes first. So when there's a conflict between your order and the Constitution, which one do you default to?
His answer? What was his answer?
He didn't have one.
I see. Did you give him a copy of the Constitution?
No, I only had one copy, and I wasn't going to give him mine because it was a gift.
All right, we need to make sure this bureaucrat has a copy of the Constitution. Maybe if he had the law in his hands, he could read it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
All right, well, Richard Mack, maybe we need to make sure all the bureaucrats at the I.R.S. have a copy of the Constitution in your latest book plan or something.
Well, he really does need the book, Are You a David? If he would read that, if every public official, especially those in federal service and law enforcement, and every peace officer in this country would read that, I don't think they would be the same and view their job the same. They certainly wouldn't be quoting, well, I have to follow orders. My oath says I have to follow orders. Well, that's just crap. That does not compute. And Sheriff London asked him a very powerful question that comes right from my court case. When Judge Roll ruled in my Supreme Court case, he said Mack was forced to choose between keeping his oath or obeying the act, obeying the Brady Bill. And that's the same thing that I think every cop in this country should have to ask themselves in studying the Constitution and studying their oath of office. Which one do you go with if the oath and the Constitution that you swore, the oath to the Constitution that you swore to, conflicts with statutory laws and regulations. And I think it's an easy answer, and I think Sheriff London has shown us that it's an easy answer, and it has been for him in getting involved in this case, because he clearly saw that due process was not being followed, and that he's going to enforce that in his county.
All right, I think we need to change Sheriff Scott London's name to Sheriff David, because he's a David Scott London.
Oh, he is.
You know, a quick question for you, Sheriff. Do you have local media, I don't know if
Sheriff London.
say support? Does Sheriff London have local media support, people that are basically bringing this to light, or, you know, what's the local media like for you?
Sheriff London?
You know, in most situations, I do have the support of the local media. We're a small-town community, and, you know, even when unpleasant things happened, our local media has been very good to try and be as polite as they can be in handling anything. With this particular situation, I don't think they've even heard about it yet.
All right, we're going to bust out and make sure they know about it. Now, you're in Carlsbad country. You're in the cavern country in New Mexico, right?
That's correct.
Man, if I could take my kids to the cabin and eat a cheeseburger with a sheriff, I'm in. What do you guys think of that plan?
Come on over.
Well, you need.
I went there when I was a kid.
Sam, there's a great Mexican restaurant there you would want to go to.
Well, now you're even getting me to go even more.
Yeah, I've been there.
And I know where you're going to say, and it's up in Artesia,
yeah,
which is also Eddy County.
Oh, so it's the wrong county.
No, it's still Eddy County.
Oh, it's still Eddy County.
Eddy
All right.
County.
Eddy County.
No
2,300
pupusas?
square miles.
No, they don't. They didn't have pupusas, but boy, they have good Mexican food there. Woo.
Well, I'm in. I'm ready to go. I like that. Now, Sheriff, what is the I.R.S. agent saying now? Do you have an open dialogue with him, and is he open to listen and for training? Is his supervisor going berserk? What's kind of the measuring stick for this thing as it goes forward?
Well, you know, there's only one person there that I'm aware of that was representing the I.R.S. Everyone else was from the U.S. Marshal. Kind of the way Sheriff Mack was explaining, you know, that sheriff's offices execute writs for our judges. The U.S. Marshals is kind of the muscle for the federal judges, and that's why they were here. And there was just the one woman from the I.R.S., and no, we didn't have an awful lot of dialogue. She obviously disagreed with me, and after I made my statement, she spent most of her time on the cell phone, and we didn't talk a whole lot.
Well, at least she didn't get herself thrown in jail. That's good.
Oh, no. I had all my deputies there, and as I clearly stated, he wasn't going to be taking me to jail. And
that is a good line.
Fortunately, we do have a good working relationship with the U.S. Marshals. You know, you said it earlier, and I want to reiterate, we do get along with our federal partners. U.S. Marshals were here just a week ago arresting a homicide suspect. You know, we do work together. We do good things together.
And hold on. And by the way, you should, when they obey the law, we have no issue, right?
Absolutely. They're a great resource when utilized properly. And so it was a friendly dialogue. It was always civil, but we obviously disagreed. And at the point that they left, we still disagreed. When we were at Mr. Carter's residence, which that's the citizen here, when we were at his residence, because I wound up dealing with him twice the same day, I was talking to Mr. Carter, and I said, if you want to come back to your house tomorrow, let me know, and I'll let you in the door. And the U.S. Marshal says, now, wait a second, you're calling this his property. According to this order, this is federal property. So I said, that may be what you're saying, but I'm telling you, this is his property. His due process has not been exhausted. It is his property.
And if you look at the Constitution, Sheriff London, there's no list for homes on that reason the federal government can have property. Not only is there a list of reasons the government can have property, the federal government, but there's also guidelines of how they can obtain or get that property for legitimate purposes. None of those are followed in this example either.
None. And so I simply turned to my resident and I said, you know what? He feels obligated to this order. At this point, he has satisfied this order because they came and changed the locks on his house before he even got home. And
now, let me stop you there and say this. Then he could probably prosecute them for they can't change the locks on his property.
He could, he chose to be very civil in the entire exchange, and I'm proud of my resident.
And good for him, sure.
He's somebody that can get fired up, especially when you're taking us home. But he exercised great restraint that day, and I'm very proud of him. But I told him in front of every marshal there, I said, if you want to come back on your property and they put locks on your gates, you let me know, and I'll come cut the locks off for you, because this is still your property.
Thank the heavens for good sheriffs, ladies and gentlemen.
Wow.
I know we're going to embarrass Scott London here a little bit, but Richard Mack, thank the heavens for David sheriffs that see the truth, that keep their oath, that defend the law, that protect citizens, and we just want everyone to be accountable, and we want everyone to obey the supreme law. If you don't like the law, you can talk about changing it. Feel free to do so. But until then, we have a responsibility here, right?
Well, we do, and I totally agree, and that's, of course, and Sheriff London knows that I've dedicated my life to creating sheriffs who do this very thing, and I'm really proud to be friends with him. He's very sincere. I've met his wife, good people. Like I say, he was at our convention. He knows that our resources are available to him, which he's already accessed a little bit. But this is the thing. What CSPOA is after is a behavioral change and a return to those principles that Sheriff London keeps in his pocket, known as the Constitution. If we don't do these types of things that Sheriff London is doing and exercising, interposing on behalf of a resident in his county and an American who lives in his county, if we don't do that, then it's going to continue to escalate the kind of police state that exists in our country today. When we stand for those principles that we promised to do when we took our oath, then we make America a better place to live, and that's exactly what Sheriff London has done in Eddy County. And folks, if you want to go there and shake his hand and take a visit to Carlsbad, go right ahead, do it. He would be open to that, I'm sure. And you know what? It's been a long time since I've been to Carlsbad, and I need to go down there and go back there myself. One of the most amazing places in America, Carlsbad Caverns in Eddy County.
I went there when I was a kid. I remember, I grew up in the eastern part of Arizona, about 15 miles from the New Mexico border, and I remember one family vacation. I mean, there were probably some others as I grew up because, I had a big family. I'm sure not too much money at the end of the month or whatever, but we did go to Carlsbad Caverns and get to see those amazing sights. A pretty great place.
Quick pause, ladies and gentlemen. Sheriff Richard Mack with us. Sheriff Scott London, Eddy County, New Mexico with us. When we come back, we're going to talk about the relationship that the sheriff has with the feds and how that might help make sense out of this. We'll do it in seconds. Liberty Roundtable Live.
Your daily Liberty News Wire. You're listening to Liberty News Radio.
Imagine a school where faith and integrity are at its center, where heritage and responsibility instill character, where educating both hearts and minds brings about academic excellence. There is a school in American Fork where character and embracing the providence of a living God are fundamental, where students' national test scores average near the 90th percentile. Based on LDS principles and a love of country, now in our 39th year, American Heritage School is accepting fall enrollment for kindergarten through high school. What would you do for your child? Give them an education that will prepare them for life. Located east of the temple in American Fork, American Heritage School is a remarkable and affordable alternative. Visit us, find us online, or in the Yellow Pages. American Heritage School in American Fork.
Liberty is not free. Its costs are innumerable. Without monetary funding, the valiant efforts of freedom-loving Americans become diminished or outright defeated. We present a solution, the Give Me Liberty Fund. The plan is quite simple. Invite individual Americans to contribute less than $1 a day. These monetary funds are used to promote liberty-minded media, organizations, events, candidates, movements, and speakers. In the spirit of transparency, all expenditures are published. Patriotic business owners provide discounted products and services to Give Me Liberty Fund members. Our greatest strength is in numbers. Go to GiveMeLibertyFund.com and become part of the solution today. GiveMeLibertyFund.com. Participate in the peaceful restoration of the greatest and freest country in the world.
From the days of the Romans, there have been legends of a fountain of youth, and now science has found a real answer to slowing the aging process. I'm Joyce Riley from the Power Hour, and it's so exciting to know that Time Challenger has capitalized on decades worth of international scientific studies to bring you the most powerful mitochondrial DNA supplement on the market today. Mitochondrial DNA is the power plant of human cells. But as we age, we lose more and more of this precious material. Time Challenger promotes healing and gives cells the power to do their work. Mental cognition may be enhanced, skin refreshed, blood pressure normalized, and signs of aging might be reduced. Time Challenger can also provide enhanced recovery for athletes. Time Challenger, the first step to slow the effects of aging on your body. To learn more, call 877-817-9829. That's 877-817-9829, or visit thepowermall.com. Time Challenger just might be your fountain of youth.
With news the networks refuse to use. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
All right, I may not be too good of a headline writer, but I got this one, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, sir. The good Sheriff Scott London is truly a David. Welcome to Liberty Roundtable Live. Former Sheriff Richard Mack on the radio, Sam Bushman, Kurt Crosby, and New Mexico Sheriff Eddy County, where Carlsbad Cavins are on the radio. And yes, he's standing against the I.R.S., not because he's against government. In fact, he has a great relationship with the federal government when they obey the law and when they work together as partners. Remember, there's dual sovereignties. According to Sheriff Richard Mack's case, there is legitimacy for the federal government, ladies and gentlemen. Go read your Constitution for relevant guidelines on that, just saying. But we want people to understand the I.R.S. must obey the law, too. And that's kind of what we're saying. So, Sheriff London, I asked right before the break, and I want to get right back to that. You have a great relationship with the federal government for the most part. You've worked with them for quite a while, and you know them, and they know you. And won't that relationship really help, even though they may disagree with you on this? Can't they sit down at the table for discussion and open dialogue and say, look, we can build a relationship of trust here. We can come to a meeting of the minds. Is that the hope?
Absolutely. You know, and I think it genuinely helped this week when they came to town. The fact that the U.S. Marshals that I was visiting with, this was not the first time I've met them. I've met them before. I shook their hands. They knew who I was. I knew who they were. So having a personal relationship with the agent certainly ensured that we had a peaceful exchange because, you know, Type A personalities, they start bumping chests, it can go south really fast. And as we all know, most guys that wear a badge tend to be that Type A personality. So it could have gone south. You know, we've seen plenty of headlines where it was not a pleasant exchange, but this was. It was a peaceful exchange.
And that's good. And that's good news that it was a peaceful exchange and that the citizen remained peaceful as well, right?
Absolutely, and it translated. He was very calm through the whole thing. Not once did anybody yell. Not once did anybody scream. It was always a calm dialogue, firm but calm. And I told the marshal on scene, and he gave me the cell phone number for his boss, the deputy chief for the South District, and I called and talked to him, and I told both of them. I said, you know, if you are pursuing a fugitive, if you're coming after a homicide suspect, a rapist, a kidnapper, anything like that, you don't need to personally call me. Call my guys. They're glad to help. Come in, take names, put bad guys in jail. That's what cops do. I'm okay with that. But when you're coming in to see someone's property, don't do it without letting me know first.
Now, you know, the CSPOA resolution, and I'm not sure if you've seen that, Sheriff, or not, Scott London. There's a CSPOA resolution that talks a lot about this and kind of lays out some guidelines for appropriate working together and respect for jurisdictional boundaries. And one of the things that it says at the end is, hey, you know what? If you're from out of my jurisdiction and you're going to come into my jurisdiction, you ought to have a courtesy call. You need to let me know, not that I'm going to oppose you, but just so that I'm aware you're here. Because if people are running around in my county with a badge on and guns, we need to make sure that they're here on appropriate business, that they have their ducks in a row. And you know, the problem is that the government has come in too many times without their ducks in a row, without following the law. And so it's kind of a respect thing jurisdictionally. You wouldn't go to D.C., nor would you have the authority, by the way. But I'm just making a point. Sometimes it's jurisdictional respect where you would say, you know what? Call me, put me on notice, just let me know you're here so I'm aware so that I don't get surprised by something that I haven't been told. What do you think of that idea?
It kind of comes down to common courtesy. In the state of New Mexico, a sheriff, we're one of the states where the sheriff actually has statewide jurisdiction, not just in my county, but in the state of New Mexico.
Okay.
I can go to another county and lawfully make an arrest. I'm not going to without notifying the head of that law enforcement agency first, though.
And that's exactly kind of why I focus on this.
Sorry.
I said
any of my guys is going to go into another county to do law enforcement duties. We're going to do that courtesy call and say, hey, we're over here, and this is what we're working on. You know, even though I have statewide jurisdiction, I technically can do that. I don't need their permission. But what's wrong with making that phone call?
Sheriff
It's
Mack?
just smart. Well, that's just smart law enforcement. And if you're a smart peace officer, you're going to make that call. And again, it's just it's courtesy, it's respect, and it's also a good idea to get the locals help. You know, they know
Absolutely.
the area better, they know the people better, and it's going to be a lot easier if you cooperate on stuff like that. And this whole thing with Sheriff London taking this stand that he has, it's exactly what every sheriff in the country should be doing, and we've been saying that for years, and we've said it 100 times on this program. But it goes back to this. Does the sheriff and other local officials, do they have a right and a responsibility and a duty to tell the federal government in some circumstances, no, you're not going to do that here? And that's exactly what I believe is contingent upon or related to the principle in the Declaration of Independence, which I'm sure is on the same little Constitution that Sheriff London carries with him everywhere he goes. The Declaration of Independence is on every one of those little pocket constitutions. And it says, of course, that when the object of evidences are designed to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government. If we have the right to throw off such government as detailed in the Constitution,
as just individuals,
Declaration of Independence, wouldn't it be even more appropriate just to say no and to do it in a diplomatic and professional manner, as Sheriff London did in this case?
and to do so by an elected official?
Yeah, exactly. And so we're not trying to arrest everybody. We're not trying to shoot anybody. We're just trying to work together to do one thing: add a layer of protection to the people who elected us. And this is, I think, tremendous example of what we've been trying to do for a number of years, and Sheriff London has set a very good example to the rest of the nation on this.
Amen, Sheriff London.
You know,
hold on, Sheriff London. Does the sheriff have that right, that responsibility, that duty, as Richard Mack says? Do you think?
We have that obligation. Sheriff Mack made a comment before the break, and Rich, we're friends, so I can disagree with you, and it's okay. He said that what I did was easy. Now, what I did was simple, but it's not an easy decision. But it was the right thing to do.
I would concur on all counts.
But very good. Yes, absolutely.
All right, Kurt, you wanted to chime in?
Yeah, you know, and by the way, Sheriff Mack said something like we wanted to install or place kind of a level of protection. In my opinion, all we really are doing is trying to restore or bring back that kind of thing. The sheriffs in the past, in my opinion, Marshal Dillon, etc., did that kind of stuff already, and that's all we're hoping for is more and more Davids, more and more, Sheriff London's, Sheriff Clark's, Sheriff Mack's across the country and across the world.
What we have said is that the sheriff is the check and balance, and what Sheriff London really did here is he was a buffer for his people, and that's all we've asked the sheriffs to do. We're not telling you go get your SWAT teams and come and stand and be ready to engage the federal government. We have never said that. This is a peaceful process. This was done peacefully in Eddy County, actually spelled E-D-Y. And that's why
is it E-D-Y or two D's?
I think it's E-D-Y.
Two D's.
Two D's.
E-D-D-Y.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I stand corrected. So Eddy County is setting the example as to keeping this peaceful and effective. And so every sheriff should be this type of buffer and a little check and balance. And what does that do? As my Supreme Court says, hence a double security arises to the rights of the people. And that's
amen
all
to that.
About.
Hey, by the way, nobody like pulled out their gun or anything, Sheriff London?
No.
Wait a minute, I can't even cover this then. We got to turn this thing off. If it bleeds, wait, come on. This isn't even a story to me, this is the exact story that really needs to be told all across the country. A peaceful sheriff meets with peaceful federal government officials discussing the supreme law. The citizen peacefully worked with his sheriff. I mean, this is picture-perfect case example of what we pray and hope for, Sheriff London.
You'll probably be hearing, Sheriff London, you'll probably be hearing from Glenn Beck, Sean Hannity, Rush Limbaugh,
Michael
all
Savage.
those guys because, of their hope to promote solutions. I'm sure they'll be getting with you.
Not.
And, the funny thing of all of this, I didn't run for sheriff to be this big constitutional guy. I ran for sheriff just because I was a cop, and I thought in law enforcement we could have been doing a little better job than what we were doing before. Holy cow, this is a big job. But you know what? It was what I was elected to do.
Well, hey, Sheriff, are you planning to run again? I remember you told me once that you were only going to run one time. Are you going to do another one?
Right now, it is still my intention to be a one-term sheriff.
And when will your term end? 2016 or 2018?
Yes, I've got 2 years left. I'm at my midterm right now.
Well, I like your attitude about it. I mean, it's hard for me because on one hand, I'm kind of thinking, hey, man, you get a constitutional sheriff, buddy, you got to stay. On the other hand, I agree with this idea that, you know what, working for government as a labor of love, as a servant position is I want to, get in there, add my talents and capabilities to improve the process. Then I want to let somebody else have a chance. And that's my view of the proper role of government. So I'm a little bit torn on this one, but I have to agree with you, Sheriff London.
Well, I think he could do 8 years and still comply with that.
No, there's truth to that, too.
Well, and New Mexico does have a term limit law limiting sheriffs to 2 consecutive terms.
All right, well, there you have it. So, Sheriff London, what else is going on in your county then? For the most part, is it quiet besides this case?
Oh, as far as anything with, that's hard to say. We're right in the midst of an oil boom here in southeast New Mexico, and just an awful lot of drilling going on, which makes us a very wealthy county. And so that has good and bad that goes with that. Our population has exploded. You mentioned wanting to come to the caverns. You probably want to wait until they finish building. We've got 5 new hotels going in Carlsbad because most of our hotels are booked solid with the oil field workers.
Wow.
Right now, it is literally cheaper to stay in Washington, D.C. than it is to stay in Carlsbad, New Mexico. You're going to pay over $300 a night to stay in our hotels right now.
Wow, I guess I'm not going to Carlsbad. Might have to stay in the sheriff's garage.
Event there.
Give us a little bit of time. We have, like I said, we have 1 hotel, I guess 2 that just recently opened up and a few more that are nearing completion. And I think once we get a few more beds opened up, that'll go down. We mentioned when we're talking about Mexican food up in Artesia, which is also in Eddy County. That's also the home of the only federal law enforcement training center that's not on the East Coast. And this is where all of the Border Patrol agents and Bureau of Indian Affairs go through their training. I believe air marshals and a few other smaller agencies also do their training there in Artesia. And this year, we have also been housing the illegals that have been coming across the border in great numbers.
Now tell me a little bit about that, too, because Sam Page, Sheriff of North Carolina, and others, we went to Washington, D.C., and talked about some of this amnesty issue. And is the federal government just shipping people to your county, or how did that all occur, and what do you think of all that?
Well, it was not a pleasant situation, and at this point they have stopped. They're actually shutting down that detention center. I got an email from the mayor of Artesia last night, and they are anticipating having a zero population by the close of business today. But it was something that the federal government kind of backdoored in. They didn't really want the locals to know. They didn't tell us. Somebody happened to leak the information.
And this is why I think you need to insist on them calling you when they're in your jurisdiction, because of these sneaky, wrongful acts like this. You can't trust them, right? That's the problem.
And quite honestly, I'm setting my personal opinions aside on border security and amnesty, which I obviously have some. Just this situation. If we have all these people coming across the border, we don't want to just turn them loose in the community, so we want to house them somewhere. And obviously, we need to secure our borders. But absent of that, we have all these people. We have to put them somewhere. This was a federal facility. I didn't...
And that may be all on the up and up. The details would tell the tale, but the point is to do it without the jurisdictional cross-checking or whatever you want to say, without permission, on the down low, in secret. That's the problem we're having here.
Absolutely. That was the issue I had. I actually happened to have a meeting with Joe Biden shortly after that, and I mentioned to him that the fact that they came in without even saying anything to the locals was very disturbing to me. We have a good working relationship with the Flexi campus here in Artesia. We work well with them. They're a great partner. They're a great resource. As a matter of fact, our dispatch center is located on their facility. We're friends, but when you try to backdoor a deal on us, it tends to tick off the community.
Well, we're friends, but we're friends as long as you treat us as a friend. When you backdoor secret deal, this kind of weird stuff, that's not what you do to a friend, sir.
Absolutely. So it has certainly been a very eventful year here in Eddy County.
All right, Sheriff Mack, you want to add to this here?
Well, it doesn't matter if it's amnesty or the I.R.S. Coming in, or the EPA or BLM trying to come in and confiscate cattle, which is now happening in New Mexico. I don't know if there's a ranching industry in Eddy County, but it's pretty overwhelming at times how the federal government can assume jurisdiction when they simply do not have it. And it's going to take sheriffs like Sheriff London and others across the country that we have. We mentioned Sheriff Clark, and of course there's Sheriff Palmer fighting the Forest Service in Grant County. I want all the listeners to know this is a result of the work that we've been trying to do nationwide. We're going to support these sheriffs. We're going to be behind sheriffs like Sheriff London and what he does, and we're going to be ready to provide them resources to make sure that they're having the public support and the national support for taking these types of stands and doing the right thing. And just like we said, and this is a typical example of it, we can restore our Constitution as the supreme law of the land, county by county, sheriff by sheriff, and state by state. We're doing it, he's doing it, and we're really thrilled when we see it actually happening.
And I like these case studies because the more picture-perfect examples we can get to illustrate the issues, and the more we have sheriffs that have relationships that can make them peaceful and that can hopefully sit down at the table for discussions and negotiations and things, the more we can insist on, hey, you know what, check with us before you enter our jurisdiction. It's a courtesy thing, it's a respect thing, it's a friendships thing, it's a building relationships of trust thing, it's a law thing. The more we can really advocate for our appropriate viewpoint of the Constitution and the balancing of agencies within government, etc., the greater chance we have to start to set a precedent that can make a real difference, Sheriff Linden.
I agree. A fight with the I.R.S., nobody likes the I.R.S. We can all, I think, agree on that. Nobody cares for them. But this is not a fight that I was looking for. This is not a fight I wanted to have. But when faced with it, I took an oath, and like I told that marshal, when there's a conflict between your oath and your orders, what do you follow? That judge, yes, I understand. He took an oath too, but he's a man. He's not infallible. He makes mistakes. So when he makes mistakes, are we going to continue to carry out those mistakes, or are we going to take a stand and follow our oath?
We have no obligation to go along with judges or legislators or bureaucrats or federal agents when they are on the wrong side of the Constitution. And sometimes a little reminder from a sheriff can correct the whole thing.
I was looking.
Go ahead, Sheriff London.
Go ahead.
I can remember when I was in the military, our oath, we did say that we would follow the orders of those appointed over us. But they also taught us in basic military training that if the order is unlawful, we do not and should not follow it. The only problem is they never told us what an unlawful order is.
You have to figure that out for yourself.
All right, Kurt.
Absolutely.
Sheriff, I'm a big fan of John Wayne, and according to the boys at Wikipedia, Eddy County was, had a lot to do with a guy named John Chisholm that John Wayne plays there. They say, according to the Wikipedia boys, they say in 1866, Charles Goodnight and Oliver Loving drove vast herds of cattle along the Pecos and set up cow camps in Seven Rivers and what is present-day Carlsbad. John Chisholm soon joined them and brought an estimated 100,000 head of cattle of his own through the Pecos Valley. You have quite a few cattle down your way?
We do. As a matter of fact, my granddad, he's 97 years old, but he has lived in Eddy County since 1921. And when he moved to Eddy County, he moved to Loving, New Mexico, which was named after, the Goodnight Loving Trail. And, an awful lot of rich history here. We do. As a matter of fact, my first job when I got out of the Air Force, and actually my last job before I joined the Air Force, was working at a feedlot at that Seven Rivers that you mentioned.
It's
fantastic.
also kind of interesting on the Wikipedia site. It tells you about the census, the recent censuses. They say in the 2010 U.S. Census, there were 77.4% folks there were white. Now, I don't understand this math, but they say there were 44.1% that were Hispanic or Latino. Now, 77.4 plus 44.
You can't add it up, Kurt, because people are a mixed race.
Okay.
And the way they calculate that census is Hispanic is an ethnicity. They're technically, unless they're another race, Caucasian, Black, those are races, whereas Hispanic is an ethnicity. So that ethnicity can overlap with the race.
Oh, does that have to do with the amount of Spanish food you've eaten?
Yes, and that's why I'm turning Hispanic, and I'm learning more Hispanic words. In fact, we start out every broadcast with Buenos Dias because of that. You see what I mean?
Good point.
There you have it. Now, we're just teasing a little bit, ladies and gentlemen. The issue is the rule of law. The issue is honesty. The issue is transparency. The issue is appropriate working together for solutions. And we want it to be as peaceful as we possibly can get it to be. And I know on the one hand, the Bundy example was quite extreme. I'm sorry the feds came pointing guns at innocent people. On the other hand, when they don't do that, when we can sit down and have a dialogue, when they obey the law, when they're transparent and they don't do sneaky things, then you know what? We have good relations, an appropriate jurisdiction, and we are able to basically keep government, like the fire in the fireplace, at its proper role. And that's all we hope for, Sheriff London.
I would absolutely agree with that.
All right, what parting shots do you have? What if they say, yeah, after he, let's say he goes on appeal and he loses? It's kind of an I.R.S. kangaroo court that I think he's in. He's not in a situation where he has a jury of his peers. What are you going to do if they say, yeah, he loses?
We'll see when we get there. Mr. Carter came to me early on and he said, if I lose my appeal, I lose my appeal. But he wanted to know, because he actually predicted this. He came to me several months ago and wanted to know, if the I.R.S. comes and tries to take my place, even though I have filed an appeal, will you protect me? I said, yes, I will. He said, that's all I'm asking for. And so they elected me to protect them. I will protect them. If he loses his appeal, we'll just have to cross that bridge when we get there. I'm trying to get a little educated on some of the finer points between here and there. And a lot of it will also depend on my resident and how far he wants to carry it. As long as there is a constitutional issue, I will support him.
Amen to that. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. And again, this is a sticky situation. People feel all kind of different ways about this I.R.S. thing. Some people just don't pay their taxes. I think that's a foolish way to go personally. I agree that the I.R.S. is unconstitutional and it should be shut down. But I pay my taxes, and I think if we want to shut it down, let's marshal the American people and let's change the law and shut down the I.R.S. We can put pressure on our members of Congress. So I guess what I'm saying is, even though I'm against the I.R.S., even though I think it's wrong, I want to work within the system to restore America. Otherwise, if you don't have that order to things, if you don't work within the system to remedy problems, at some point you get this outside of the system, anarchy, whatever term you want to use stuff, to where if you're not careful, you'll get something worse than you already got. And so we need to be very careful, and we need to roll back, and we need to realize we cannot stoop to their level, if you will. Last comment, Sheriff Scott London.
It was a proud moment when one of my deputies after that situation texted me and said, "Thank you, Sheriff. I learned something today as you were talking to the marshals about the Constitution."
I dig it. Sheriff Mack, the last 10 seconds are yours.
I can't say it any better, Sam. That's the way we want it to go.
Sheriff Scott London, tell your family hi from the Liberty Roundtable team and from the CSPOA, and wish everyone a Merry Christmas. Will you please, sir?
We will. Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Sheriff London. Kurt, last word's yours.
Well, his county's bigger than about 3 of our states, so it's a pretty good-sized place.
Hey, I hear that.
God bless this new David sheriff. Yeah.
Amen to that. Yes, he is a David, ladies and gentlemen.